Chain restaurants have always been America's favorite, but even abroad you see them spreading like a wildfire. From coffee to donuts and ice cream, from burgers to pizza and more, today we're taking a look at the most popular chain restaurants in the world. Starting off in the 50s with Dairy Queen.
Your favorite Dairy Queen treat is a refreshing reality.
As American soldiers returned from World War II, Dairy Queen leaned heavily into franchising. As many young men came back from the war, America's economy surged. Their car factories started working again, and the money received from going to war also led to a suburban boom. Now everyone had a car, and most people tried to move close to a city. With roads becoming bigger and people driving everywhere, it was the perfect time for Dairy Queen to spread out. Their roadside stops became the perfect place for American families to quickly grab an ice cream when they were on their way somewhere. On top of that, Dairy Queen was one of the first to have a reliable soft serve machine. Back then that was completely new technology. The 1950s was a very different time, way before franchising became the norm. Their only real competition at the time was A&W restaurants.
That turns into one of us! Hey, get your paws off my drink!
A&W is by far best known for their root beer. Unlike many other soft drinks like Coke, Pepsi, 7-Up and Sprite, they don't really have a direct competitor that comes anywhere close to their popularity. But did you know that they also own a restaurant chain which is considered the oldest successful burger franchise in the world? From the 50s all the way to the late 60s, A&W was the second largest restaurant chain in the world. While they didn't have quite as many franchises as Dairy Queen, they still overtook the rest of their competition by leagues. At the peak of their popularity, they had around 2,400 restaurants. While they're not as popular today, they were the first large burger joint in the country. They are even believed to have created the bacon cheeseburger in 1963. In the late 60s, A&W would be overtaken by the world's favorite chicken joint, KFC.
With convenient, delicious Colonel Sanders Kentucky Fried Chicken.
You've probably all already heard the story of Harland Sanders, also known as Colonel Sanders. He used to own a small roadside restaurant where he served chicken, steak and other meals, until in 1939 he discovered how to pressure fry chicken, something that wasn't really done before at all. This, combined with his secret recipe of 11 herbs and spices, was immediately a hit with his clients. In the 50s, as the infrastructure around highways improved, a lot of his clientele was diverted away from him. Now he had to find a new way to make money. And so he did. He drove around the country in his car selling his chicken method and recipe to as many restaurants as he could. In return for using his recipe, they would pay him 1 nickel for every chicken sold. And just like at his own restaurant, the famous Kentucky Fried Chicken sold like hotcakes. By 1963 he already had over 600 franchises in the US. And just a year later he sold his business to a group of investors for $2 million. As soon as these people came in, they worked on creating a unified brand image and really ramped up the franchising. So much so that by 1968 they would even outrank A&W restaurants as the second largest fast food chain in the world. And they were not satisfied with that, as it just kept going from there. By 1974 they would overtake even Dairy Queen, as they now had more than 4,000 restaurants. It truly seemed like their reign would last forever. But in the late 70s a different franchise was slowly crawling up to the top. And then by 1980 they would take the throne as the biggest fast food franchise in the world. I'm talking about McDonald's. The place that created the modern fast food system was McDonald's. The initial idea was to just create a drive-in restaurant. From there, the brothers who owned the restaurant focused most of their efforts into creating a speedy system where people could quickly get to their food. They called it the Speedy Service System. The restaurant severely limited their menu and used standardized methods in order to cook the food as quickly as possible. In return, they managed to keep their prices as low as possible and customers would receive their orders within minutes. This was incredibly convenient at the time, especially for people who wanted to quickly grab some food for their family on their way back home from work. In 1954, a milkshake machine salesman saw their restaurant as revolutionary. He quickly managed to convince the brothers to let him franchise this restaurant nationwide. And franchise he did. He first opened one small franchise in Illinois. There he introduced his new standard for uniforms, layout and menus. And soon after he started expanding aggressively. With every new franchise, the company would first buy the land, then lease it to the franchisee. This gave them a lot more control than traditional franchises had, because now they could pressure the new franchisee into doing exactly what they wanted. Through this, they managed to maintain their quality standards throughout the nation. Then they invested a lot into advertising, from TV ads to jingles to mascots and print ads. Once they were popular enough in the US, they started to branch out internationally. And that was when things really started booming for them. Because sure, the US is big, but the world is so much bigger than that. The golden arches, the red and white clown, and even the weird purple monster thing all became worldwide symbols. Everyone knew them, everyone tried them, and everyone loved them. By 1980, McDonald's had over 6,000 worldwide franchises, and ever since they've only been expanding. The franchise became so famous that to this day many people believe that McDonald's is the largest chain restaurant in the world. But that's actually not true anymore. Let's talk about a franchise that would soon get incredibly close to beating out McDonald's. Let's talk about Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut, the best pizzas under one roof.
Just like McDonald's, Pizza Hut was created by two brothers in the 50s. And the only reason why it was called Pizza Hut in the first place was because the sign that they bought only allowed for up to 8 letters. Back in the late 50s, pizza was still a quite exotic food in the US. And after finding success in their hometown, they quickly started franchising, thereby becoming the first to bring pizza to many parts of the US. In the late 60s, it looked like they had everything figured out. They even introduced their signature red roofs onto their restaurants. From 1972, the company went public, and from there on, things started to actually blow up. So much so that in 1977, the whole company was bought up by Pepsi. And now that they were owned by Pepsi, their budget became almost infinite. With this newfound budget, they would start ads everywhere, on TV, in print media, and everywhere else. They always positioned themselves and their pizza as a family highlight. And it worked, because by 1980 they had over 4,000 different franchises. In 1980 they introduced the Pan Pizza. They needed something to distinguish themselves from their competitors like Domino's and other local pizza joints. And the Pan Pizza was just that. It's thick, it's buttery, and the cheese is delicious. But most importantly, it's different from what anyone else had to offer. By the mid-80s it became a Pizza Hut staple, the main reason why people would even go to the restaurant in the first place. That is when the company started expanding a lot more aggressively than they did before, both nationally and internationally. So much so that between 1985 and 1990, the amount of franchises that Pizza Hut owned went from over 4,000 all the way to 9,000 worldwide. It seemed like it might even overtake McDonald's as the biggest restaurant chain in the world. But after 1990, its growth actually slowed down and a different business would slowly rise to the top. A fast food business that didn't even need a proper kitchen. This was none other than Subway.
Food for thought. Subway. It's the way a sandwich should be.
In 1965, 17-year-old Fred DeLuca started his very own sandwich shop. It was called Pete's Super Submarines. Then, by 1968, as the shop was already becoming quite successful, they renamed it to Subway for simpler branding. From there, the rest of the story is quite familiar. It's a pretty standard franchising story from the 70s. It took them quite a while to land on this list as they first appeared in the late 1980s. But then, in the 90s, they changed their marketing strategy, and everything changed. For this new marketing strategy, they focused on being the healthy fast food. They did this mostly through an emphasis on their fresh ingredients that are prepared right in front of your eyes. This was the perfect timing because the 90s is when the US truly started being aware of healthy diets. For example, did you know that the food pyramid didn't release until 1992? As Americans were getting more wary of fat and processed foods like in McDonald's, KFC, Burger King and others, Subway's Eat Fresh campaign naturally put them in front of everyone's eyes. Additionally, opening a Subway franchise was a lot cheaper than any of their competitors. All a Subway needs is a tiny bit of space, a couple chairs, and one worker. Opening a Subway franchise was so easy and profitable, you would find them pretty much anywhere from gas stations to hospitals and universities. By 2002, they surpassed McDonald's in US locations. And then by 2010 they became the largest chain restaurant in the world. McDonald's and Subway would fight for the top spot for quite a long time. All the while the most Instagrammed coffee chain would be sitting right below them. Let's look into Starbucks.
Delicious Starbucks double shot espresso drink. Bring on the day.
The origins of Starbucks are actually quite poetic. You see, originally the brand only sold coffee equipment and beans and didn't have any cafes for itself. In 1982, Howard Schultz joined as the director of retail operations and marketing. Once he took this seat, he started envisioning Starbucks as a third place between home and work. But the original founders resisted the idea of a cafe. So what did Schultz do? Well, he just left and started his own cafe called Il Giornale in 1985. He ended up making so much money with his new cafe that in 1987 he outright bought Starbucks. He then rebranded his own cafe into Starbucks and his original dream became a reality. I'm sure he didn't only do it purely out of spite, but damn, what a story. The cafe chain started expanding rapidly in the 90s. They positioned themselves as an entire premium lifestyle brand rather than a cafe. Schultz really pushed hard to make Starbucks feel as much as an experience as possible. The baristas would call you by your name, you were encouraged to personalize your drinks, the interiors were usually air-conditioned with nice seating options. And in the 2000s, they even introduced free Wi-Fi for anyone in their stores. They first appeared on this list in 2002, and by 2007 they were already sitting at the number 3 spot. The one thing that they did incredibly well was adapt to modern internet culture. Ever since social media was a thing, posting pictures of yourself in a Starbucks or with your Starbucks cup has become quite the norm to this day. With all this free advertising, it was only natural that Starbucks would continue to expand. In order to ensure quality among this massive expansion, corporate actually decided against franchising, owning most of the locations worldwide themselves. And by 2019, there were more than 30,000 of them. But soon the unimaginable would happen, and this entire list was shaken up from the bottom. Let me introduce you to Mixue ice cream and tea. So far, all of the brands that landed on this list have always been from the West, or more specifically from the US of A. But Mixue is different. As you've probably already guessed, it came straight out of China. And it actually doesn't have any branches in the US. The business started in 1997 in the Henan province. First, they only sold shaved ice and cold drinks on a small stall in the streets. But after trying many different things, in 2003 they settled on Mixue and started selling ice cream and bubble tea. The company found its breakthrough product in 2005 when they started selling soft serve ice cream for only 1 yuan, that is about 14 cents US. Mixue became known as the cheap dessert place. And by 2007 they started franchising aggressively. Unlike many other franchises, they didn't make most of their money from franchising fees, but rather from owning the supply chain. This way the business became especially interesting to franchisees. By keeping franchising fees low, they can realistically keep their prices low as well, while also quickly becoming profitable for their owners, with many reporting that they break even after 6 to 12 months. Being in the second most populated country in the world and offering such an attractive deal to businessmen meant that the ice cream chain would quickly expand. They even ended up expanding into neighboring countries like Japan, Korea, and most of Southeast Asia. Later on, they even expanded into Australia as well. Today, they own a whopping 45,000 franchises, beating out even McDonald's and taking the #1 spot. But it turns out that they are not the only Chinese brand on this list. Let's talk about Luckin Coffee.
Luck in hand. Luckin Coffee.
Luckin Coffee approached creating a cafe chain like a tech startup. They mostly focused on a mobile app where people could order coffee and then simply pick it up at one of their many spots. They started their business by creating huge discounts and promos for new customers. These deals were so good, it was hard not to get a coffee there. And according to their accounting, their numbers were great, making incredible profits with this business. Everyone thought that Luckin Coffee was gonna beat out Starbucks and become the largest coffee chain in the world. But then in 2020, an anonymous report was released. One about an investigation where they found out that most of these numbers were fake. Obviously, faking your numbers to investors is highly illegal as it is fraud. And so, after a court hearing in 2021, the company went bankrupt. Many people think the story ends there, but that's not quite the case. Because just a year later, the company was brought back by a Chinese private equity firm. From there, it's only continued expanding. In June of this year, they even opened 2 locations in New York, their very first US branches. Luckin Coffee now operates more than 24,000 stores globally. And at this rate, they may very well still become the next Starbucks killer. Let me know which company you think will overtake Mixue next. Is McDonald's gonna get back on top, or is some new company from say India gonna surprise everyone? Let's wait and find out. Thank you for watching and see you next time.